call to order the Borough Council regular meeting for April 20th, 2022. Can we get a roll call?
President Ferguson.
Here.
Vice President Gerard.
Here.
Councilmember Fagan.
Here.
Councilmember Presser.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Mayor Gerard.
Here.
Borough Manager Snyder.
Here.
Borough Solicitor Harper.
Here.
All right, if we'll stand, we'll give a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll have our invitation by Councilor Stevens.
Almighty God, we thank you for the blessing of this day and for your many blessings on us and our community. We are grateful for this opportunity to serve our community and ask that you guide us and give us wisdom in all that we do. Pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, first item on the agenda, approval of the meeting agenda. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I got a motion by Councilor Stevens, a second by Councilor Presser. Any changes or comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, motion passes. All right, approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the March 2nd, 2022 workshop and March 16th regular meetings?
I'll make a move. Second.
I got a motion from Councilor Gerard, a second from Councilor Fagan. I don't know why I drew a blank there. Any recommendations or changes to those meeting minutes? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Item 3, public input. Please raise your hand and state your name and address and reason for addressing council.
Hello, my name is Victor Lewis. I live at 151 Orchard Lane, and the reason why I wanted to say something is we have the sewer construction done, the laterals done on our street, and I want to say thank you to Steve and the workers of the borough for correcting mistakes that the contractor made. Very open, kept me informed what was happening, and the workers did a real good job. I wanted the council to know that. Should appreciate them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to hear positive comments, because oftentimes we don't, so,
Yeah.
so thank you for that. Anyone else? Yes.
Steve Bowers, 510 West Vine Street. It's been a while since I saw you all. Next to Edinburgh Square, I have some questions, maybe not concerns. I noticed 2 of the lots have buried underground propane tanks. Was that on the plans from the start? And if so, is it just those 2 lots, or is it lot 1, which is right next to my property, gonna have one of those 2?
Which lots have that?
3 and 4.
So the one on the very right-hand side next to Coffle, and the one that's kind of angled off? of
Yes,
the
the one that
Okay.
comes off of Coffle and the one on the corner of Coffle and Vine.
Okay.
I know those 2 have buried propane tanks. So I was wondering if the other 2 properties are gonna have it. My next question is.
Hold on for a second. I think maybe we should refer that question to our engineer,
Mhm.
because he has all the plans and can review them, and I could give Jamie an answer, and then she can get back to him.
Okay.
He will be in tomorrow afternoon.
That's fine, I knew I wasn't gonna get
Yep.
the answers now. The other thing, maybe for the engineer too, lot 1, which is next to my property, the downspouts, are they gonna tie into the drain pipe that's getting installed, or are they just gonna dump it into the yard? Because my next concern is, you know, the silt fence, the silt sock's been up for a couple years already. It can't handle anymore, just like last week when we had the heavy rain, half of my driveway was flooded. You can still see the mud marks there. It turned out my sump pump failed, not because of that, but there's an excess water draining over there now. And I know, I think it was the last Zoom meeting that I attended, Caracaz stated that, well, he asked for permission to put that drain pipe and that fence, the property line fence in after that last lot is built. Well, that last lot is up. Now, I know back before Dave had said he was gonna build these houses as sold. And I know right now lot 4 is the only one under contract. So we already deviated from what he was originally gonna say and, you know, built them as sold. So he's already got them built and they're not sold that I'm aware of. So how soon can we get that 6-inch drain pipe between the property, which will help alleviate all that runoff now and get that fence up? That's all I had. And I knew, you know, this wasn't the meeting, but this is as soon as when I could attend.
Now,
so.
this is a perfectly fine place to bring it up, it's just, nobody sitting at the table tonight actually has the answer, but the engineer can find it out.
Right.
And, Jamie can ask him to make an inspection while he's here.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, we'll go into item 4, announcements.
Next council meetings are May 4th workshop and the May 18th regular meeting at 7:30 p.m. here in council chambers. HROC is scheduled to meet Wednesday, April 7th at 8 a.m. here in council chambers. The next planning commission meeting is scheduled for May 2nd at 7 p.m. here in council chambers. The Borough of Hatfield Earth Day event is this Saturday, April 23rd from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Franconia Auto Repair. The borough offices will be closed Thursday, April 28th from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. for cybersecurity training for all borough staff. A conditional use hearing for Hattrick Sports Bar and Grill located at 64 East Lincoln Avenue is scheduled for Wednesday, May 4th at 7:30 p.m. here in council chambers. And the spring town hall is scheduled for Wednesday, May 11th at 7 p.m. with a meet and greet from 6 to 7 p.m. here at the municipal building.
All right, any questions? All right, we'll go to the item that everyone's here for, most people are here for, the April 4th Borough Wide Power Outage. And I'll turn it over to the manager and let her.
So this evening, we're here to discuss the April 24th, 2022 Borough-wide power outage. In attendance this evening, we have representatives from American Municipal Power on Zoom, and we have representatives in person from Carr & Duff, which is the electrical contractor for the outage. I'm going to turn it over to Willie Sandell. He is from American Municipal Power AMP. He's going to just give a short overview of what the behind the meter project is, and he's going to describe what the project is, why we're doing this project in the borough, what it's for, and then after Willie's done, we'll turn it over to the representatives from Carr & Duff, and they'll speak this evening of why this power outage is necessary. We'll open it up to any questions for myself, Steve Figgert, the Public Works Director, any of the people in attendance, Willie, Carr & Duff, or council, after we have a presentation from Willie and Carr & Duff. So Willie, if you can hear me, you're on. Thank you for attending this evening.
Thanks, Jamie. I truly appreciate the introduction. Willie Sandell. I'm the project manager that's putting in the behind the meter peaking project. The behind the meter peaking project is a project throughout Pennsylvania that was designed to put roughly around 54 megawatts of generation to help curb the peaking needs of PPLs having one coincidental peaks. It's the 1 CP and the 5 CP, which is what a coincidental peak is. They're designed to basically operate during that period of time, so when the coincidental peak comes, it slows down the meter so that you actually have some savings. I shared some numbers with Jamie, which she's free to share with you guys. To talk about what we did last year. Last year in 21, we only had one unit that was online, which was the Ephrata unit, which is 5.4 megawatts of 2 power blocks of 2 7, so it's double what you have. They only were able to run one time because of some difficulties we had, but that one time was the CP, both the 1 CP and the 5 CP for the year. On the 5 CP, that generator netted over $1 million for the 1 CP. And for the 5 CP, which should have ran 5 times, but only ran 1 time, it netted roughly $250,000. This is the savings that would be seen to pay off, well, first off, it pays off the debt service on these units, and then it turns around, and then it becomes savings for everybody that's in the membership or in the subscription for the behind the meter for the Pennsylvania Borough, which you guys are part of. Currently, we have 1 generator that's out there by the maintenance station. It is 2.7 megawatts. I'm sure you guys have heard woes of stories of PP&L and how much fun they are to work with. We've had our share of difficulties which have caused delays on this unit. But right now, I feel that we're on the home stretch. The folks from Cardiff will come back and talk to you about the reason we need a power outage and what we need to do. But right now, I am projecting this unit to be commercial and ready to operate by June 1st, which is the beginning of the 5 CPs. So the 5 CPs, remember, go from June 1st to September 30th. 1 CP is year round. And so that's where we're at right now with that project. I think it's a very good project still. I'm a little disappointed on the delays that we have seen with it, but it's been an uphill battle trying to deal with Pennsylvania Power and Light and trying to get what they want from us so we can get these projects online.
So I know that Willie gave a ton of information. Does anyone have any questions? Because there's a lot to digest there. We've heard it multiple times, so we kind of understand a lot of that, but please don't hesitate if you got any questions with what he's talking about.
Yeah, I don't quite understand how this can be profitable with the cost of diesel, which this unit's being used. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it's not a clean fuel, right?
Well, and Willie, jump in here if you want, or if I say anything incorrectly. The idea is the way the power companies charge the rates, how they set the rates, is they look at the peak usage during 2 different times of the year, one during the summer, one during the winter months. And so basically they have a time period that they know that they figure out when is going to be the most you're going to use it, and that's what they use when they set the rates, that's what they use when they set the capacity charges. And so the idea here is with this unit, even though it's costing us diesel, it'll drop the amount of usage that we have so that the rates that they set are based on a lower usage than a higher usage. And that's where the savings comes from, is that delta. Is that correct, Willie? Did I say that correctly?
For the most part, coincidental peaks are basically paid for 2 separate. So your electric bill's broken into different segments. One of them is the amount of electricity you use, which you pay on a KW basis. And there's some taxes and other type of charges that are in there. But then there are other 2 charges. One is the 1 CP, which pays for the transmission costs that go through there. This is really the cost that PP&L is charging all the people that take power from PP&L that are based on how much they
Schneider, your question is more of how does this cost savings relate to the diesel that we have to buy to run the generator? Right?
Yeah, and also, how's this tied in? You just shut down part of the system and put it on the diesel? You can't just feed both from PP&L into diesel the same circuits, can you?
Well, that's a great question. So, Willie? Oh, sorry, Willie. Can you hear that?
I did not. Can you please say it again?
Okay. Sorry, Schneider. Can you ask the question again?
I just don't understand how you can feed the diesel generated electricity into the system unless we shut down or you feed it into 1/3 of the borough and cut down then your usage on the other 2/3. Is
Okay.
that the way it's done?
Yeah, so sorry, Willie, the question has to do with, how do we run the generator while we have power being supplied to the borough at the same time? He doesn't understand, is there a switch, or how does that work?
There is not a switch. What we end up doing is we interject electricity. So it's almost like being a mechanical engineer that I am, I think electricity is water because that's what I understand. So it's basically you have a fountain that's pushing water in this way. As it's doing, what we're doing on the other end of the pipe is putting water in from another direction or electricity from another direction. We have safe balls that says that we can't push water or electricity back onto the DPL grid, but we can turn around and slow the amount of water that's coming or electricity that's coming across into your borough that's feeding all your customers. So all we're doing is slowing down that flow of electricity coming into the borough, and at that point where that flow's coming in, there's a meter. That meter is measuring the amount of flow coming across. That meter is what's dictating what's going against the CPs. As long as when we slow that down, what we do is you gotta remember the way the CPs are set up, they're charged PPL wide. So it doesn't matter if you're not a customer of PPL or if you're a customer of NAC or wherever you are, everybody's gonna get charged these. And so with that being said, us slowing this down, it reduces that charge greatly.
Does that make sense?
Well, that doesn't quite answer my question. I'm not
Well,
an
so
electrical
basically,
engineer,
there isn't a shut-off, there isn't anything that happens like that. So you basically have electric feed coming in from PPL, and then
Right.
we interject a feed into that, so this feed from PPL becomes less.
Okay,
So-
okay, you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my main question.
That's okay. That was a good question. All the conversations, I hadn't really thought of it the way he just described it, so I thought that was a great analogy, the water analogy.
And if I may, one of the reasons we're having a lot of this take a longer than it would be, is PPL is very meticulous to ensure that we never inject our electricity onto their grid. And they basically are being very sticklers on to ensure that we've got the protections on our side so that we can never do that. And so that's what we continue to work with PPL today to make that happen. And one of the things that what Karen Duff's gonna talk about is we need a system outage, because we need to be able to measure the flow of electricity that is coming in from PP&L so that we can control the diesels on the other end to ensure that we never export onto their grid.
All right, well, why don't we turn it over to Karen Duff now? Let you guys kind of walk through the process a little bit.
Okay. You guys can hear me, right? Okay, so yeah, that was a good question, and you can, just the big picture, it's complex how to do it, okay? But the idea is kind of simple, right? You know, you have these peak times of demand, okay, and so does everybody else on PPL at that same time. So you're drawing more, and what the generator does, it helps during those peak times. So that's what it does. So yeah, they do join together. It's complex and it's hard to do, but that's what we do. The outage that we're doing has to do with just that metering that the gentleman was just talking about, measuring the electric coming from PPL, okay, to the town, and then knowing how much the generator's putting out, so that we're not getting metered on what we're generating, if that makes any sense. That's what it does. And the reason why we need the outage is simply this, it's a safety concern, okay? You get metered on the high voltage, it's 12,000 volts, 12,470 volts. And, you know, I'm a lineman, Dan here, he's a lineman, and we often work things energized, we do that. But not this, because there's no protection. When we energize this, it's right in front of us. You know, when we do stuff like that, sometimes you'll see linemen on the road and it'll be on the end of a long fiberglass stick. So they're out of the line of fire, so to speak. So we're energizing new equipment. They're little transformers is what they are. They've never been energized before. There's no fuse protection, okay, that's gonna trip right away. And if for some reason they got damaged in shipping or whatever, and they fail, it could be catastrophic. So the reason why we want to shut down is just simply for safety concerns.
What happens if one of those fail, not during this test period, but when it goes live? What kind of fail-safe do you have then?
Well, I mean, just like all the other equipment. So the metering equipment, there's two kinds of transformers. Current transformers, CTs, they measure the current. And the whole town is in series with them. It goes in one side of these, and it goes out the other. And there's one for each phase, it's 3 phase. So there's 3 of those. And then there's potential transformers that translate down to 120, 240, a low voltage that the meters work by. So if they fail, if they do fail, if they blow up, so to speak, it's just like if a wire fell down. You would lose one phase, that's what would happen. But they're rugged, they're not meant to be fused, they want to be solid to the circuit, because if you add equipment to protect them, it's something else that could fail. You know, they weather, the fuse blows, and then you're in that situation. They want it solid to the circuit. So that's
the equipment that we're energizing when we do that is actually more delicate on energized. So like you're talking about a component that if we go ahead and change that a cutout, let's say at the end of your street, the fuse on the end of your street, we're used to doing that energized. It's a rugged piece of equipment designed to take overload. These things are not. So when you're putting them in place, you gotta take care of, you gotta make sure when you do energize them, you're energizing them from a distance, from a place of safety. That's all we're asking for, is we gotta put that stuff in. Does it fail? It does. You probably never even known it failed. It just was an outage at the borough, and RNF came up and fixed that component, and we moved on. But there's the safety of our members to be able to put that stuff in place is really what we're asking for. A little forgiveness for that, in order to put these components into place. So, and I mean, it's a great question that you actually had. They do work in series. They do work, and this is a proven system. It's something that's going to help the borough and help you guys all along. So I think it's a win-win for you guys all along. It's just going to take a little bit of time for us to turn these off. So that's what we're asking for.
So after your initial startup to get these things charged, is it like a capacitor that holds a charge?
No. It's just gonna be on.
It's just a
Yeah.
honest to God, it's to simplify it, they're meters. That's all it is. It just tells what's coming in, what's going out. And it gives these guys an opportunity to adjust, turn that on and off when it needs to go on and off. If we were simplifying it, that's really what it's getting down to.
And so correct me if I'm wrong, and I think you mentioned it, there's a couple factors there. One, because it's a high voltage line, but also what happens too, from what's been described, is that oftentimes you have damage or something in shipping that's not detected, and working on it live, if that were to be the case, and now you try to energize it, that's when someone can get hurt, but there's no way to detect it in advance. That's why you need it shut off.
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, they were tested at the factory, but like I've been doing this for a long time. I put in new transformers, brand new, from the factory. They were tested too. Doesn't happen a lot, but they failed. But they're behind fuses. Nobody gets hurt. This is kind of like right in your face. There's nothing gonna save our guys from, they could get really hurt.
repair welding machines, I see capacity.
Yeah, right, well, that's what that R is.
And they're also
It's an R.
20 feet, 25 feet in the air, enclosed in a bucket with limited space to move out of the way if something were to fail.
We're gonna try, so, logistically, we're gonna try to do this with, the way we're gonna have it, we're gonna have 2 buckets, 2 guys up in the air, working simultaneously after we shut it off. And we said 4 hours, okay? And we're hoping less, okay? We're hoping less. If everything goes like the way we think it's gonna go, it's gonna be less. But we always build in a little bit of, okay, a little bit of leeway there.
That was gonna be my question. Obviously, there's a lot of planning in it, so 4 hours is, a little less than that, but if something does go wrong, is there extra time that you plan to extend, or is it just gonna get put back on and you're gonna try again another date?
That's what's gonna, so if something goes wrong, we'll have you back on in 4 hours, and it's gonna be just like it is now. The meters, we'll take the meters out of it, we're gonna regroup and, rethink it.
Right, really, you're talking about 2 scenarios, right? One, that something runs later than anticipated, or something that's catastrophic that requires them to come back, so.
Yeah, basically, like, if nothing, if everything doesn't go to plan, are you just gonna keep working, the power's gonna stay out for 6, 7, 8 hours, or is it just gonna be cut back on and you, like you said, you're gonna regroup and come back at another time and try it again?
I see the only issue, and I knock on wood saying this, would be when they go to re-energize the system and say one of the CTs or PTs were to fail. Obviously, they would de-energize the system, take that out of commission, so that's no longer even there. Take that CT or PT, whatever fails, take it down, and immediately, not that day, but we would have to order a new one, get a new one in, and then this would have to be rescheduled again to put that new one up at a later time. So it's not like the 4 hours, okay, there was a problem, this is gonna stay out for 2 additional hours.
Weather is not a problem.
Excuse me?
The weather, if it rains.
Well, I don't think I think we're looking at good weather.
Weather
Could have
be a
been,
problem, yeah, be a
but I
problem.
think we're getting lucky here.
We do have a, I think the 15th at night was the scheduled, if there would be a problem, let's say something blows in that's outside the box for weather. I think we had the 15th of May scheduled as our backup date. Enough time to give you a chance to again readjust, make sure that.
So our guys will be, they'll get here maybe 2 hours, like by 10 o'clock, and they're gonna start setting up, and they're gonna get like as ready as possible. All the switching to turn everything off is in the same spot as where their work is. It's not like they gotta go all over town to turn things off. It's a matter of throwing 4 switches off, boom, 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 and then they're up in the air and they're working.
I have a quick question for you gentlemen. Can you tell me what is the life expectancy of these units that you're putting in? It would be like 10 years, 20 years, and I'm assuming you would have to go through the same process again whenever they need to be replaced?
I can't say, I won't speak for amps, equipment, because I think they should, but the equipment we're putting in the air, the knowledge level we have, PTs and CTs are probably a 20-year life expectancy. And I think the maintenance would pick that up beforehand to make sure they're being tested. And that open air, I would say that, I'll actually ask Paul again, what is it that he does, but I would say that 20 years is the life expectancy for open air for CTs and PTs.
So I'm assuming if you were monitoring the voltage flow, that you would sort of get a warning ahead of time that something's about to go in a short span of time.
What they're most susceptible to is over voltage, a lightning strike. That's probably the biggest culprit for these things, these pieces of equipment. And yeah, there's no warning about that.
Right. Okay.
And just to follow up, I would think that the borough will probably be doing maintenance and testing at times to come up and make sure that those things are in play or being taken care of all the time. I think that's probably part of the grand scheme of things.
Right. Okay, thank you.
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's you know, we're not looking at shutdowns every year or anything like that. So we're talking like once every 20 years, 15 to 20 years possibly. So.
Something more than basic maintenance or light inspections.
Mhm.
The basic components that fail any part of the system, I would think that would be susceptible only to that.
I do have another question, the cost factor. How much does this generator cost? And is it cost efficient? You have to maintain this all the time, correct? Has to be run occasionally? You can't just leave it sit there and hopefully you use it sometime. And then you're using fuel that you don't know what that cost is gonna be.
So
These things been worked out, I don't know how this gets paid for. Who's buying the generator?
That's okay. Willie can probably give exact numbers if we want to get into that, but in general, what we've done is the cost of this is actually paid for by the savings. So there's an 8-year time period that we have where the borough doesn't receive any cost savings for what we get. It pays for the equipment that they're putting in. After that, the savings is what's incorporated or will be recouped by the borough after that 8-year time period. So, and then we've also factored into our budgets the additional maintenance and care that it will take to update it. But at the end of the day, the cost savings is significant. So that's why this.
What's significant?
I think it was like 150 grand a year or something like that. So that's pretty significant given our budget. So.
What
Willie,
does
do you want to
generator
respond to that?
cost?
I'm sorry?
I don't understand the whole, what does a generator cost? What is the cost of that generator?
This project at Hatfield is projected right around $2.5 million to put in. And that's what we budgeted to put in there. The payback on this generator is less than 8 years based on our projections for the 1 and 5 CPs for the next 10, 15 years that we have done through our power supply, who does the same people that send out the memos that tell you when peaking is going to happen. Project has been formulated that once these are paid off, the savings will come back to the members. So basically, this is costing the borough does not pay for any gas or any fuel, it does not pay for any of the maintenance. All that is coming out of from AMP as a part of our budget that we have put in to the 8-year payback. So we have run a pro forma showing this, basically what the payback would be based on the savings that we would get. Also, I'd like to point out that these units are available for the village, so if you were to lose power from PP&L, you guys can run these units as you need to, as long as you don't exceed their ratings of 2.7 megawatts. And from our point of view of the boroughs, that should be about 90% of the time when you guys are below that threshold. So if something were to happen, you guys have the ability to run these units at any time. And I can tell you a success story of that is last year, Woodville, Ohio had a major storm that came through 60-mile-an-hour winds. It's in Hometown Connections, you can read about it. Anyway, blew down the power lines. We were able to start the generator and support the town for 8 hours. I only charged the town to do that, the price of the fuel they burned for 8 hours, which was somewhere in the neighborhood of like $2,500.
So does that make sense? So basically, AMP is
It does
funding
make
this.
sense, but what I'm complaining in this borough, none of this was ever said to anybody. I mean, I was here to a meeting in October, and the previous people were trying to explain what this was. They couldn't explain it. They were just trying to say how great it was. And that's the problem I have with this borough. You don't find out anything unless you come here and try to get some answers. And then you shouldn't have to do that. I mean, I think most of the people in this town, they don't know why this 4-hour outage is. They don't know what it's for. Because behind the meter, what does that tell you? That's a lot of propaganda. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you what you're really doing.
I can understand some of the confusion, but I'm going to dispute what you said a little bit because ever since I've been on council for 4 years now, this project has been in the works and we've been talking about it. So we've had different meetings where we've escalated and increased the amount of information that in regards to this project. And also the management of the borough has also been increasing transparency. We've had more communication, in the last year, 2 years than we ever did before,
No,
so.
I
so-
object to that. Was anything ever like in the newspaper? No. Right? And I don't go on the internet, okay? I hadn't heard a thing about it until last October. That was the first time I knew about it. Now, you think anybody else in this town all knows about it? I doubt it.
Okay. Well, we'll take notes to try and communicate a little bit more and keep our transparency out there and communicate more. But I guess the biggest thing is that, I want everyone that's here in the room and anyone that's watching to realize is that, this has been something that in partnership with AMP, who has been a great partner with us to come up with these ideas. And the idea is about saving the borough money and the residents for the money long-term. And so that's why we want to make this kind of investment. That's why there's been talks about it. I understand that, the power outage for the 4 or 5 hours that we're going to be out is an inconvenience, but long-term, it has significant impact to the borough. It has both financially and reliability for the system. And as Willie mentioned, if we were to have another Sandy event, this would allow the borough, instead of being out of power for 3 days, would allow us to turn on sections of the borough at different times so people can have electricity. So again, not only is it improving the reliability, not only is it going to reduce costs, but it gives us that flexibility in the event that we have another superstorm like Sandy and we're out of power for days and days and days. So long term, there's a definite benefit to the borough. And if we haven't communicated well enough, then we'll definitely take that to heart and see what we can do better, as we go forward. But that's really what it is. And again, just to let everyone know that this is why we're doing it. We are looking out for the best interests of the residents. You've got Car and Duff, you've got AMP and guys who are dedicated to this. They know their stuff, and we've been partnering with them for a while. And I just want to commend everyone that's online too, because I know I've been pestering Steve and Jamie, and I know they've been pestering the Car and Duff guys and everyone, because I've been drilling them, asking a lot of questions about why do we need to shut off power to the borough. So I've been I and Richard, who's head of the utilities committee, have been the loudest voice asking the question, why? Can we do this any other way? So I appreciate all of your guys' patience. And again, like I said, this is for long-term health of the borough. So I think it's good. That's why we want to do this, and that's why it's kind of been in the works for a while. So I apologize if, like I said, we haven't communicated enough, and we'll definitely consider that as we go forward.
Can I ask one question? So,
Sure.
Car and Duff, you guys have always been great to jump on any outages in this borough. I'll give that to you. Have you guys done this in other towns with this AMP or whatever it's called? Have you guys done this?
We haven't, but are proceeding forward with AMP. So this is the first time, because Hatfield is our primary customer. You guys have been our customer for the better part of 30 years, 40 years? It's as long as I can remember.
Okay. I just wanted to see
Yeah,
if
no,
there's any
it's a
other
great-
success stories.
It's a great question, but knowing electrical work, and even to help answer your question, is you're putting in a generator that, I was the first person to walk on system in Hurricane Sandy, 3 days. I was the first person to show up in Hatfield. You have the capability of bringing your town back up in some capacity, which is giant, okay? That's, for what they're adding, and that alone is giant. I'd say that Hatfield Borough, they put us in touch with AMP. We didn't do that before. We look out for you. You're our customer. And actually seeing what they do, we're really impressed. We're impressed to the point where we're moving forward with AMP for other projects throughout the state of Pennsylvania. So if that's any indication of what we feel, I think that's a pretty good one.
And we've done it for like, big commercial places, but not towns. I mean, this is a town, it's a
Temple
little city
University
that we're
did.
doing.
Temple University did the same thing. Car and Duff put in 12 of these for Temple University. Paul actually ran that project. They did the same thing. This is commonplace. This is not outside the box. This is actually just something that's coming in, and the borough is really doing a good job stepping forward with this. I think they found the right partner. If you're asking me, I'll give you that.
And if I can add, I'm sorry, I keep talking a lot tonight, I apologize. One of the things I want to commend our borough staff and companies like Car and Duff is, if you've noticed recently in the storms that we've had, they've been pretty big storms, and we have not lost power. The only time we've lost power, like in the last couple of years, yeah, knock on wood, has been when someone's hit poles. You know, we obviously can't prevent that, but, you know, the work that everyone's been doing has given our system a lot of reliability and kept the power outages. And so I can't emphasize that enough, that, you know, the difference that it's made over the last couple of years. I mean, it's been tremendous. So, and hopefully the residents have seen that and recognized that. So,
I've seen, you know, it's quick response.
Mhm.
By the way, you don't have to go back to Sandy. I mean, last year, there was tornadoes. Look at Horsham. I mean, Fort Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, they got devastated. So like, you know, maybe the east part of the town gets hit with a tornado, and you may have the ability to get the rest of it up and running. Like I've had power issues at my house where, you know, Pico lost power for 3 days, and I mean, I felt like a savage. Like I don't know how he survived as a species with electricity. But so yeah, so it really is not just the peak shaving, but it's for reliability. I think that's, you know, equal parts.
He's muted himself.
Hey, Willie, can you unmute yourself?
Hey, Jamie, can I share my screen for one quick second?
Sure.
You guys have the ability to see it if I share my screen?
Yep.
Host disabled. I need you to enable our participant screen sharing capabilities, please. Okay, I basically gave a speech at the APPA conference, E&O, and that's an engineering and operations committee. And I just want to share 3 quick screens with you guys, kind of show you, this is the real heart of this project. And actually, I'll take a couple more screens of this. This right here, if you see this is an example of what we call peak shaving. So if you look at the blue is the load that's coming on, and the total load that comes on through the tie line. The tie line is that point right behind that ice cream shop where the energy from PPNO, or the electricity from PPNO is coming in and then touching and delivered into the borough. As you see it going up, you will notice that it gets here. This is where we start our generators. The generators start running and they drop the load down here until the peak, which right here is the CP hour, is over. Instead of being charged for this amount of peak, you're being charged for this amount of peak. Guys, this is an example, not for the borough per se, because when we run, we're pretty much going to take you close to 0 to begin with, because your load is not up at 18 megawatts. The next picture I want to show you is this is the picture of transmission rate projections. I use this because I was at a place, this was an example. The example is actually real life. This is the transmission rates from PP&L. This is where AMP sees them going. As you've noticed, this is how they've been climbing, and then we take them at a certain % rate. The rate right here, I will be upfront with you, this is First Energy's rate. This is what we project out. Because I was giving this to a large group, I changed the names to protect the innocent. But this right here is where our savings is really coming from. Capacity payments are a little bit harder. They've been all over the map, depending, because we have to go per PJM into a clearing auction for capacity. Transmission is based on what PP&L wants to build and is approved through PJM and the RTO. These are through a clearinghouse. As you notice, they've been up and down and all around. Not 100% sure exactly where these are going to go, but we do see them going lower. I do want to show you a couple other slides. Kind of talks about how the project was set up. We have a firm price, basically modular, cost efficient. Basically, they're very efficient from an environmental position. Even though we're burning diesel, they're tier 4, which is one of the cleanest out there. Then talk about the structure. It's structured 100%, and we recover the capacity payments, where we projected AMP a 10-year payback. At PP&L, we're at an 8-year payback. And basically, we're not 100% sure where the future's going to lie,
if we were all sitting around drinking beers 10 years ago or 20 years ago, we would be talking a totally different energy scenario. And then I want to show you this last one. This is the projected payback. This kind of shows you how it is set up to pay back. We basically, here's the savings, projected cost, and then all of a sudden, what you're seeing down here are the O&M costs, and here's the savings that's going to come back to the members. We're projecting these projects to run 20 to 30 years. At the same time, we've not talked about anything that we were discussing earlier, about any of the ancillary benefits that you get here. I'm just talking about CP savings, which pays for the project, that doesn't cost you guys anything. But then we have the ancillary savings of having the reliability and the availability of the unit to be sitting behind your meter, so that if you guys have a power outage, you have the ability to start up the borough and make it a shining beacon of light in a sea of darkness. That's all I got to say on that.
That's a great analogy.
I don't know how to stop share. Oh, there is stop share.
Were there any more questions for our panel? Sounds like no.
I would just like to
also
highlight.
add, if I
Go ahead,
may,
Lee.
that the Hatfield is one of 14 projects that are going in. Right now, we have over 88 megawatts of electricity through Ohio and Pennsylvania. We love Pennsylvania, guys. We want to put more generation in Pennsylvania. The hardest part about Pennsylvania, the boroughs are so small that we just can't find places to put them in. I've got projects going in Schuylhaven, Weatherly, Mifflinburg, Quakertown. We've got projects that are operational in Percy and in Ephrata that are ready to run this year. My goal right now, hopefully by June 1st, I will have both Blakely and Hatfield up and running. In June, I plan to have Schuylhaven running, and in July, I plan to have Weatherly running, so we all can catch those CPs. This is a big project for AMP. We're very proud of this project. Mostly we're coming under budgeted construction costs. We're longer than we expected to be built out. Again, I can sing the PP&L blues, but this is a song that's gonna make the top 10 years soon. But I think it's a good project overall. Thanks.
I just wanted to note that for anyone in attendance, if you don't follow us on social media or have access to online, everything that we have posted and everything that we put out is on this table right here for you to take with you if you like hard copies. And also on the bulletin board is a picture of the behind the meter generator that is located at the public workshop, along with what we call the AMP site, which is where our power comes in from PP&L and goes into our 3 circuits on the bulletin board here, just so you know where the work's gonna be taking place and what the generator looks like.
All right, well, if there's no other questions or comments, I think we can let our
I just
guests.
have one comment to make.
Sure.
I was at that meeting, I guess it was in October, and this was not explained like it was tonight. Now I understand who's doing this and how it works. I didn't before. When they tried to explain that night, I was totally confused. Now I understand somewhat what's going on.
Well, good.
But till then, I didn't hear anything about it until tonight.
Well, if there's no other questions, we'll kind of let everyone go. Thank you, guys, for coming, spending some time with us this evening, and helping our residents understand what's going on. So,
Thanks, Ryan.
yeah.
Good night.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's fine.
That's okay. Yeah. Item 6, new business, the conditional use hearing.
We have a few things in our zoning ordinance that require conditional use. And we got one of them is an oversized accessory building. So there are in the borough already places that have oversized accessory buildings that were built before zoning. I don't think this is one of them, but they want to do an oversized building. So tonight, we'll be asking you to authorize me to advertise it in the newspaper that we'll be holding a hearing. Conditional use is actually a permitted use unless it's dangerous to health, safety, and welfare. The reason it's in the zoning ordinance as conditional use is that in general, you want to know how big is this garage going to be? What are you going to use it for? You know, and to make sure that it's compatible with its neighborhood. If it is, then you can award them approval. I would probably write a decision because there should be a written decision for conditional use. Speaking of this, only because we should do it for hat tricks as well, okay? My municipalities handle this differently. Some of them vote that night and then I write it. And some of them say, okay, we'll take this under advisement, then I circulate a decision and then they vote. So you guys have to decide how you would like to handle these. But for tonight, this conditional use, we picked a date, didn't we? That we thought we need so many weeks for advertising, so we didn't want to make it too close. May 18th. So later on tonight, you'll be asked to vote in favor of holding this particular hearing on May 18th. Your hat tricks hearing is on May 2nd, because the municipality's planning code, first week, that's what I meant, 4th. The municipality's planning code, which is a statewide law, requires that you hold a hearing within so many days and then issue a decision within so many days. So we had to put hat tricks on the workshop meeting to make sure that we had time to advertise it within the time period and get it done. Okay? And you can just give me instructions or give Jamie instructions on whether you want to vote that night. You get 45 days, okay? Or whether you, and then have me write a decision, or whether you want to wait till I write a decision. I mean, you got to tell me which way you're leaning, okay? So I can write up a decision, then you can vote on that, okay? I know the gentleman from Hat Tricks will be anxious, but I'm just telling you what the rules are. You do actually get 45 days to make a decision.
Right. Well, we've also had selective enforcement on it, so he knows that, you know, even if we delay it longer, it's not going to impact his, you know, what he's doing. So I guess my thought would be is not voting on it that night, but, you know, kind of waiting till you
write it up so that you can have edits of my draft, you know, and make sure that I capture everything you want me to capture.
That would be my thought. I don't know what the rest of the council thinks.
Yeah, sounds like the best idea.
Okay.
All right, that's the way we'll handle Hat Tricks. And then, you know, you can handle this garage or accessory building the same way, or you know, it may not be any big deal and you may just decide that night to do it, in which case I'll write up the decision afterwards.
No, I think we're being consistent. We'll do it both ways. Again, if there's no objections to that, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Then as far as we are, you have the application. Doesn't tell you much. It basically says that it's a little bigger than it's allowed to be. And so that's the purpose. The deed is in there because you can't bring in a zoning application unless you can prove you're either an owner or a tenant or something like that. And so basically, you can ask them whatever you want, but some of the questions you'll be asking, I hope, would be, what do you plan to use it for? To make sure it's really an accessory to a residence. And, you know, you're not gonna use it for another dwelling unit, that kind of stuff, so that we can then include that in the decision. So that we say, well, we granted approval, but we granted it because you agreed you weren't gonna use it as an additional dwelling unit, things like that. Okay?
And you'll have us prepared with those kind of questions, right?
Yeah. I'll help you out.
All right. Any questions on that? All right, then we'll go to item number 7, old business. Resolution for the Libertyville Trail feasibility study.
This resolution was discussed at the workshop meeting. It's the resolution for endorsement and acceptance of the Libertyville Trail feasibility study. That study was done and just finished, I have a draft, the draft copy was accepted and the original, the good copy will go on the borough website. That was the study that was done with Hatfield Borough, Hatfield Township, Franconia, Souderton, Telford, Lansdale, a little bit of North Wales, and Upper Gwinnett Township to bring the Liberty Bell Trail from Upper Gwinnett all the way through Franconia. So this is just on for consideration of action this evening, that if any future planning, such as a comprehensive plan or planning that we will be doing in the borough, we will consider the Liberty Bell Trail as an asset that we have in the planning process.
All right.
Yeah, Hatfield Township, North Wales, and I believe a little bit of Lansdale too, just received grant money to make an extension on the Liberty Bell Trail. I believe Hatfield Townships is down the PP&L line from Schwab, around roughly Schwab Road or Villa down to West Vine, like past where Diddens would be, where they're proposing their new development. It'll be a nice connection. They'll connect right to us, and looking forward to it.
We've been forward compared to other municipalities with this trail, right? So we've been one of the first. So.
We were first, and we're the only one that had it basically completed. The only, if we want to connect to the township moving forward, we would have to go out, as they proposed in the draft and this study, out Penn Street. So then that could connect in the township down to Township Line Road through Souderton, Franconia, Telford area. But yeah, we were the first, and then Lansdale is significantly completed as well. So they, I would say they're roughly maybe 80 to 90% complete. They have to go through Wedgwood area and down a little bit of Schwab to connect into the township.
But I think that's thankful to the forward nature of the council before I was even on it, because you guys worked on this and saw it early on and really jumped on it. So.
Jamie, quick question. Do you know what the final expected completion date is of the entire project?
For the entire project, I would say years. Because even for using Franconia as an example, they're not sure which route they want to go with. So they have an in-town route that would be more focused on the Souderton Telford, or they have the country route, and they haven't decided which one they would want to go to even make that connection. I know we can partner with Hatfield Township on a grant moving forward to connect down Penn Street from us. So then we would be fully complete. But for everybody to connect, I would say years.
All right, if there are no more questions, we'll get to item B, the deputy tax collector.
As we spoke about the workshop meeting, it is Pennsylvania law that Mohammed, our current tax collector, appoint a deputy, and that deputy has to be approved by the governing body, which is yourselves. So on for consideration this evening, Mohammed would like to appoint Rafi. We had talked about this at the workshop meeting, and as I highlighted then, he has known Rafi for most of 12 to 15 years. Rafi is a borough resident and is very involved with Mohammed at the mosque and a lot of other community events, and is very interested in stepping in as the deputy if our current tax collector would become incapacitated and could no longer serve.
Any questions on that? All right, item C, PSAB conference voting delegate and alternate, excuse me.
At the PSAB conference, every borough nominates a voting delegate and an alternate to vote on resolutions, to vote on, second vice president and the board. Currently, Larry Stevens and myself are the only members of Hatfield Borough that are currently signed up and registered to attend PSAB. So on for consideration this evening is to appoint Larry Stevens as your voting delegate and myself as the alternate for the PSAB voting at the conference in May.
Any questions?
Thank you for volunteering, Larry.
Thank you both. I mean, part of your involvement in these organizations helps us find projects and work with AMP, and it's an important part of what we do. So thank you guys for taking the time to do it. All right. If there's no other old business, we'll go on to our action items for this evening. The first action item, motion to consider advertising the conditional use hearing for 390 West Vine Street, for a public hearing to be held May 18th at 7:30. Can I get a motion?
I'll second.
I got a motion from Counselor Stevens, a second from Counselor Gerard. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right, item B, motion to consider resolution 2022-05, accepting the Liberty Bell Trail feasibility study.
So moved.
I'll second.
I got a motion from Counselor Stevens, a second from Counselor Fagan. Is there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, so the motion carries. Item C, motion to consider appointing Rafi, and I'm gonna butcher his last name, Baharuddin, all right, as the Borough of Hatfield Deputy Tax Collector.
I'll make a motion on that. I'll second.
I got a motion from Counselor Gerard, a second from Counselor Fagan. Any questions other than how to pronounce his name correctly? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, so motion carries. Item D, a motion to consider naming Larry G. Stevens as the 2022 PSAB voting delegate and naming Jamie E. Snyder as the alternate.
So moved?
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman. I know, you guys are killing me, so Councilwoman Crosser and Councilman Fagan, was the second, so apologies for that. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, so the motion carries. All right, item 9, motion to consider approval of the payment of the bills.
Move to approve payment of the bills.
Second?
I got a motion from Counselor Stevens, a second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions or comments on them? Anything anyone we want to highlight? I do like the highlighting that we've done, so that's great. That's highlighting the biggest expenses. So I think that really draws your attention to those. So I think that's a good move. All right, if there's no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, so motion carries. Manager Snyder, I'm assuming we're gonna have an executive session?
Yes, to discuss litigation and personnel issues.
Okay. All right, well then I will request a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight.